Good morning, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to the Mesa City Council study session for Halloween, October 31st, 2024. All of our council are present in the chambers this morning. First item on our agenda is to review the agenda we have for our Monday, November 4th council meeting. So, council, if you could please look at that agenda. Mr. Brady, is there anything on here that staff would like to go over?
We have the item for the senior affordable housing is separate item we'll cover.
Okay.
But other than that, we don't have anything specific.
Okay, good. Council, anything on Monday, the 4th agenda that you'd like additional information on?
I apologize. So did you need to come up, John, on 6A? Yes, I'm sorry, Mayor and Council, we had made a presentation on the electric vehicle code update. We went back to the developers, the multifamily, and we just had one change from what we showed you last time that we want to be clear about. So
Okay.
just getting their feedback.
Yeah, I remember this presentation. Thank you. Please.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Happy Halloween.
Thank you.
As you recall, on the September 5th study session, we had talked about the desire to have for multifamily, for the electric vehicle chargers, and for electrical vehicle capable parking spaces to have it at 20%. Well, following that, we had multiple discussions with some of the multifamily developers, and during those conversations, it was mentioned that the number should be based on the number of units as opposed to the number of total parking spaces. And the rationale behind that was that ties it more to the tenants that the spaces are intended to be used by, as opposed to the total, which includes parking for visitors and can vary. So based on that, we took a look at what's recommended and revised to have EV installed spaces, the full chargers, at 5% of the number of units, plus an additional 15% for the number of EV capable spaces. And there was no change to the single family residential.
Great. Remind us again the distinction between an installed and a capable.
Sure. EV installed, 100% ready to go, drive up, plug in. EV capable is all the infrastructure is provided. So the power is there at the electrical service. They've run conduit over to the parking space. It's got a sign that indicates that it's ready at that space, so they can just come in and drop in and charge it later. The infrastructure is there so that when they put in the new charger, you don't have to go back and tear up the sidewalk, the asphalt, landscaping, etc. So the cost is drastically reduced to just come back and put in just the charger.
Yeah. Okay. Alicia.
Thanks, Mayor. What's the third category? Capable, installed, and then what was the other one?
There's EV ready as well.
Okay, and that was just the electrical conduit?
Right. There's kind of the 3 steps, and we got kind of the capable, ready, and installed. So capable's all the infrastructure. Ready's one step further, where the outlet's there.
Okay.
And you can just plug in the charger to the outlet, and then EV installs the actual EV charger that plugs into the car.
Thank you.
So EV adoption is happening right now, and I think most people think at some point it's going to be more than 15% of all vehicles on the street. Maybe not in the next handful of years, but before too long. And so, then the vehicles are becoming more and more affordable. So I think it's more and more likely that multifamily, you're going to see maybe 10 years from now, half of the cars in the parking lot will be electric vehicles. So how does the math of this work if we have 15? I guess this would allow 20%, the 15 plus the 5. If the capability would be there to increase it beyond. Is that what you're saying?
There's always capability to increase beyond. This is the infrastructure looking forward, up to 20%. Obviously, more, 20% is 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 more electrical services can be brought in. It's extensive to really get to 50%. And that's what some of the feedback that we received was, that there's kind of a breaking point where putting in all the infrastructure now, you know, forecasting too far ahead, that they really saw the cost as burdensome, forecasting that far out. You can always add more. This is a starting point, just to say that all up to 20% is easy to do. You can always add another 20% down the road.
Okay. Well, I think this might be as much as we can do, but I think it's, to me, again, the math doesn't work for long-term. But Jen?
Now, on the EV capable and ready and these standards where it's not installed, are there any requirements as far as if it's going to be a level 1, level 2, level 3? I mean, because being ready is the electric being available to pull underground, right?
Mayor Kessel, yeah, it's a
Or
good
in the
question.
building.
This sets everything up for level 2 chargers. And just to recap, level 1 is the 110 outlet that you plug a toaster into in your house, and that could take, you know, an entire day, 24 hours or more to charge a vehicle. Level 2, pretty much guaranteed an overnight charge, multiple hours. Level 3 is the really high power where you wouldn't have the capacity at a home or even apartment to have that kind of power where it's rapid charge and you can charge, you know, half a battery in a matter of minutes.
It appears that the standard is very similar to what you're proposing as far as just looking at what other cities are requiring in their development and build
Correct.
standards. So, thank you.
So the percentage of EVs on the road today is about 8%, is that right? At least in Arizona?
That sounds right to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Can we somehow tie that? I mean, why would we not want to start with the base, right? Because as the mayor said, that's only going to grow. So maybe, I know that's just a couple of percentage points, and a couple of spaces, but that kind of makes sense to me. Start with what we have today. I think the rest is reasonable to me because it seems as if the market is kind of unpredictable, and we don't know where the technology is going with charging and charging stations and all of that. So the rest of the 15% EV capable seems reasonable to me for what we know now about the EV market. But I don't know. I just throw out there. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but to start with whatever the existing market looks like.
Are you saying it needs to be more aggressive?
Well, I'm saying
Instead
the
of 5,
installed.
it should be 8 or 10.
Yeah,
Because
if
that
that's
reflects
what-
the reality of where we are right now.
Yeah, now I don't know if there's, you know, in the multifamily, you know, maybe we're not at 8% in multifamily, and that is maybe a good point, and I'd like to hear. Thank you.
Mayor, Councilmember Gofor, that's actually a good point. In our discussion with them, their percentage of the EVs on the market right now, there's a distinction between those living in single-family homes compared to those living in apartments, and definitely those living in single-family homes seems to be higher. And so if you look at the averages of average, this seems to be what they recommended, and they told us they actually do pay attention a lot to their market demand themselves. So in addition to the city requiring, they very much pay attention to what their customers are looking for, and they basically build the infrastructure to meet the demand as well.
Yeah. Well, my reaction, I've already given you my reaction. I think it sets the stage for a kind of a crisis in 10 years. I mean, there are manufacturers like Volkswagen that have announced that they're going to exclusively make electric vehicles in the not too many years. And so I think the adoption of these vehicles is only going to increase. And I think the affordability is only going to increase. And now, I think what you're proposing is actually pretty progressive in terms of, you know, there's not a lot of cities that are doing more than this because it's probably very difficult to do more than this. But I just wonder how the market, the multifamily housing market, is going to respond in a few years when, you know, people are not are going to. This is going to be a critical decision for where they rent an apartment.
Mayor, Council, in terms of comparing the numbers to the surrounding cities, we actually have one of the highest required standards.
Yeah. I'm sorry, were there, Mr. Freeman, or did I see another hand over here? No? Okay.
Well, thank you. I think the best template to me is the single-family home builders. They're the ones that, you know, actually putting these EV-ready or capable into their units. And I think that's, you know, it's all about affordability. You know, I'm not in a lot of multifamily complexes, but I don't see a lot of EV vehicles in multifamily complexes, where we do in single-family homes. And I think the developers who build the multifamily are very aware of that, and then they know exactly what they need to do to, you know, to sell their units, and affordability comes into that. I guess my question was back on, in a single-family home building, is there a level 1 or 2 or 3 requirement during that time, or is it just up to the builder to provide whatever, you know, charging solution they want for the unit?
Mayor, Councilmember Freeman, the idea is for it, level 2 is kind of across the board here. Level 1, again, that's kind of provided already at the house.
Sure,
The
yeah.
idea is to have level 2, you know, a 220 volt in the garage. And so we're providing a path from the electrical service to the garage to make that a relatively easy install retrofit.
I
At
guess I
level
could
2.
ask the council, I mean, some of you have electric vehicles. Are you level 2 charging?
There's no way on level 1.
Level 1, yeah.
I think the proposal is that for single family, everybody's going to have level 2.
Correct.
Yeah. So which makes sense. Frankly, I have 2 level 2s in my garage. And I think that's going to be more and more common. But again, the rub here is once the affordability of these cars comes down, and that's about to happen. I mean, if you look at Europe right now, there's cheap Chinese manufactured high-quality electric vehicles that are less expensive than internal combustion vehicles. And so these vehicles are going to be widely adopted, and they're going to be very affordable. And that's going to be in the next few years. And so I know all we can do is all we can do, and it seems like this is as much as the market will allow us to do right now, but I see on the horizon a real challenge for how the multifamily market's going to provide what their residents need.
But Mayor, do you know what is the outlook for charging stations? You know, where maybe multifamily EV owners will go to a fast charging station, you know.
They're going to be forced to, yeah. You'll see a lot of people, I mean, there's questions having to do with the grid capacity, right? And whether or not, it'd be interesting to hear from our Mesa Electric company, if we, you can't just decide you're going to install a bunch of electric vehicle chargers. Literally, the transformers and the grid and it's not there. So this is not a Mesa problem. This is a nationwide problem. And so I think we need to just keep pace and be as progressive as we can be on this, because it's just acknowledging the reality of what's going to happen. And then Mesa, along with the rest of the country, will try to figure out how do we adopt, as this becomes more and more common, electric vehicle utilization. So I don't need us to be the most progressive city in the country on this, but I just think we need to keep pace, and I think this does that. But it begs the question: what are we going to do when we need more? Council, any additional questions? Jen?
Mayor, are you suggesting that the standards are higher than the proposal? What is your?
No, I think this, well, so we pushed back on this a little bit in September, and we said, go back, I think the original proposal was something similar to this, and we said, well, go back and see if we can get 20 plus 5, right? And I think you did that, and the industry pushed back and said, we really can't, that'll affect affordability, and we can't do that.
Mayor Council, the original proposal overall was 15%, and the direction from council was to find a way to get to 20%. So that's why we went back and dialogue with them to find a way to at least get to a 20% possibility.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, 5 plus 15 is more than you'd originally thought we could get, but the industry has agreed that this is not something they would push back from.
That's correct.
Okay. Yes, Julie?
So the city comparison, I noticed there's no Tempe, Chandler, Gilbert, Phoenix.
So
Like all the cities that are near us, Scottsdale's the only one that's anywhere near us. So I'm just curious what the ones right around us are doing. Or if maybe they're not doing anything, is that why they're not on there?
Mayor Council, understanding is that a lot of the cities are talking about it, but when we did our research, the Scottsdale and Avondale were the ones we found that had ordinances in effect.
In the valley
In the
or
valley.
in this area? That's something that is interesting to me, that no one
Yeah.
else right around us, even Phoenix, is doing anything.
Well, I strongly suspect they're in the middle of this conversation, just like we are, yeah. All right. Any additional discussion?
I was just gonna say, I'm satisfied with what you've proposed. I think we don't want to get too far, we don't want to get ahead of the market, really, but as the mayor said, we certainly want to keep pace, and I think that this does that.
Yeah.
I think just in addition, this can be updated as we need moving forward, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, once it's built, it's built, and then an apartment complex is gonna have to figure out how do we add additional capacity to our parking lot for more EV chargers, and that's gonna be a very, expensive trenching, figuring out transformers. I mean, once it's baked, it's gonna be difficult to rebake it, I think.
Mayor Council, that's correct. And it's also important to know this is a basic minimum. There's nothing that will prevent an apartment owner that has determined the market demands more. They can always do more than basically what is being required here.
Yeah. All right, well, I thank you, gentlemen, for working on this. I'm glad that we're addressing this, and I'll be curious to watch what the Mesa City Council is going to do over the next 10 years to respond to the market. Thank you very much.
Mayor, we do have one more presentation on 5D.
5D. Okay, thank you.
No, this is Sandra. Sorry, you're next.
Welcome, Candace.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor and Council. We have a unique opportunity to present to you this morning regarding some senior affordable housing and an opportunity for development here in the downtown area. Just a little bit of background real quick. I know that we have done, over the last year, we have adopted the Mesa Balanced Housing Master Plan. And as we went through that, we do know that between our kind of off the streets program and homeless programs that we have, we do see that seniors are one of the fastest growing populations that are entering into homelessness. And through our Balanced Housing Master Plan, as our consultant looked at our demographics and compared them to the nation in general, we are growing faster in our senior population than the nation. We also looked at that, and they identified that the city of Mesa is looking for a need of over 23,000 housing units at that lower end, that 50% AMI. And when we look at our population of seniors, right now we're sitting about a 20 to 25% senior population in the city of Mesa. So if we look at that, you can see that we have a great need for senior affordable housing here. The opportunity we have before us today is a combination of 3 parcels. And you can see in the map that they are on the southwest corner of University and Center. 17, 31, and 37 West University Drive are the addresses. They are a total of 0.92 acres, and there has been a recent appraisal was done on the property, appraisal at $2.1 million. The appraisal that was done also identified the best use of this particular parcel, and that best use was for commercial or multifamily development on this parcel, as it does abut directly onto University. The great thing about this is if you look at the map, is the proximity to the senior center that's already there, that we already fund the operations of, some of the operations of that particular building. And you can see it's really just across a neighborhood road. So that road that's in between these parcels and the senior center is a neighborhood road. So that's the adjacency for that. Funding availability, we looked when we identified this property as a unique opportunity to have some senior affordable housing directly adjacent to our senior center where they can have services. When we looked for funding, we did find our neighborhood stabilization program that we had was implemented back. We received funding in 2009 and 2011 from the federal government. Neighborhood stabilization, or NSP dollars. The intent of those was that was during the Great Recession. So it was to go in and buy vacant properties, foreclosures, kind of blighted areas, and try to refurbish those and then resell those below the market value to income eligible owners. So that was a way to try to kind of infuse neighborhoods and infuse people getting people back into homes. Again, that was back in 2009 and 2011. We did that for a while. We did purchase properties, we did renovate them with these dollars, and then we did assist owners in purchasing those. At the end of the day, there still remains $536,000 in the original funds that we received through through this program. It was actually called NSP1 and NSP2, the different allocations. And we have just under $1.4 million in program income. So program income, it would be a combination of interest on the funds, but mainly it's the reselling of those homes back into affordable income eligible owners. So that does give us a total of just over $1.9 million in federal funds that are sitting with us, waiting for the best use, for us to identify the best use of these funds going forward. What can we do with NSP funds? What are the requirements? The requirements are really kind of what I just talked about. The original program was to acquire and rehabilitate housing and then to resell that to income eligible owners going in. It assisted with down payment assistance for those particular folks going into these homes. It is also eligible for acquisition of vacant land for future development. So that is kind of this particular funding source from the federal government does allow land banking. Not all of them do. For example, in our home dollars, that's not allowed for land banking. So we wouldn't be able to use home dollars for something like this, but we can use NSP dollars. We can also use it on demolition of blighted structures and doing kind of like foreclosure prevention, which is some of the services that we offered during the Great Recession when people were facing foreclosure. We looked at other options just to make sure. We want to make sure we're always looking at opportunity costs whenever we're identifying funding sources. In the NSP program, the program income portion of it, so which is just under $1.4 million, we do have the ability to convert that to CDBG, Community Development Block Grant funds. That is an option for us. There is a limitation on CDBG funds. 15% of that could be used for services, but only 15%. The other 85% would need to be used for more of that brick and mortar type projects. These are the projects that we have the most difficulty getting done in a timely manner when it comes to nonprofits. And usually we end up using those in-house. We currently have 3 parks. And it's taken us a long time to get through the process to do park improvements using CDBG dollars. But we do have 3 in the works already using those types of funds. The remaining $536,000, that was the original program, income coming from that funds would either need to be used on an NSP eligible activity or we would need to return it to the federal government. And HUD, Housing Urban Development, has been contacting different municipalities across the nation saying we really want to close out our NSP programs. Can you please take a look? Because again, these were 2009 and 2011. Going forward, for the development of the property itself, so the city of Mesa would not be developing this property. We would be acquiring the property for the development of senior affordable housing. Once we have control of the property, we would then issue an RFP, a response for proposals, a request for proposals for the development of this property. We would receive those proposals and select an appropriate housing developer to put senior affordable housing at this particular area. Part of the requirements of that request for proposals would be that they also apply for LIHTC, which is low-income housing tax credits through the state of Arizona, through the upcoming process. The process deadline is April 1st, I believe. And so part of this requirement would be that they would apply for those funds as well, which is their gap financing, which would allow the project to be developed. They would also receive $500,000 in home funds toward the construction of the project. This is typical. And this is something that we did last year when we supported a project who did attempt to do senior affordable housing on this particular parcel. They did apply, and during that, we did allocate $500,000 in home funds towards their application if they were successful. Unfortunately, they were not successful. And so we still have those home funds available for a future developer for this particular parcel.
Julie?
What made them unsuccessful, and what, is it just their particular like funding or whatever, and what, is anything gonna be different to make the next person successful?
It is, and thank you, Mayor and Councilmember Spilsbury. The difference in the application is actually doing a land lease through the city of Mesa. So the particular application from last year had all the available points that they could. The only points they were missing was they weren't a phase 2 of a phase 1 project that does receive additional points in that process. The second one is a land lease from a municipality receives extra points as well.
Okay, so with the point structure of LIHTC, they'll get more points that will make them be more successful.
They get more
to
points, right, Candace, if there's a local contribution?
There's a local contribution, so they receive points they received a couple different areas of points. One, they received, because we were allocating $500,000 in home funds, they received points for that. They also received points we were give them expedited permitting fees, and so even though it's a low dollar amount, it counts as a city contribution, if you will, towards the project. So we really tried to assist. They happen to be the next project that would have been funded if the funding hadn't run out.
Oh, so super close.
They were super
So we're
close.
thinking these extra points will push them over into being able to be awarded.
If we take possession of the property and then use it to leverage the property, we think the next RFP process, the developer will gain that many more points, we think it will score well.
Okay.
It will score well. And that would be the intent. The request for proposal would be a land lease on this particular property. And then again, with the $500,000, it does score, it puts that next set of points on there. And just to be clear, this is a request for proposals, so all developers can, not just the developer that we worked with last year, but this would be a request for proposals for this particular site for senior affordable housing. And then we would review all submitted proposals for what we thought was the most likely to be funded by the state and the best impact to our residents.
Yes, Mr. Freeman?
So does the city continue owning the land lease in perpetuity?
It would be a very, Mayor and Councilmember Freeman, it would be very similar to what we did with the Escobedo properties.
That's what I was going to ask.
So that with a land lease, with an ultimate
Expiration.
purchase, with a purchase in the
Purchase.
future, right?
Okay.
An available
We need
purchase
to
in
meet the
future.
obligations of the HUD to make sure that the senior affordable housing is being met for a period of time.
Do you know the time constraint on that? How many years out?
I believe it's 20 years, and I'm going to look back at 20 years.
I think that sounds
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
All right.
So there's a 20-year requirement. Most of the federal, I won't say all of it, but most of the federal funds do require a 20-year affordability period. And regardless of it, whichever fund, whether it's the CDBG, the home funds, NSP, those types of things.
All right. That's a question I have now. Thank you.
So I had the same question. That's why if we're contributing public money to this and we want to, for as long as possible, require that the land be used for affordable senior housing, the most we can do is the 20 years, or at some point, 20 years from now, the owner of the property could say, we had a good 20 years of providing affordable housing, now we're going to flip it and it's going to become market rate housing?
Well, I will say that the mayor, that the HUD requirements would require that it be 20 years. This is a city land lease. And so as the owner of the property, that's different. And we would have, the ability to say it's longer if we want to do that it's longer. I would want to talk with our particular,
Or at least have them come back to us.
talk with our applicants to see what that does to their financing. I don't know what that does to their financing. I'm not on the housing development side. But it's our land, right? So we can put the restrictions on the land lease that we wish.
Yeah, I think we ought to, that's great. But given that this is such a strategic piece of property, literally across the street from the senior center, it's just ideal for,
Okay.
Senior housing. And so to the extent we can lock that in, I think that's
We
a
could look at
good
that.
idea.
We can make it a perpetual restriction, deed restriction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mayor and Council, that would be part of the request for proposal. So in the request for proposal, we would be saying what we were offering, and then they would come back with their proposals based on our requirements.
I'll just ask.
Yes, Mr. Freeman?
So an example comes to mind on North Robeson, the high-rise there, that was senior housing for many years. I know it was privately owned, but now it's been converted into market-rate housing. And so we don't want that to happen if that were to happen in the future like that structure has had. So I know it's being redeveloped for market-rate housing, so I don't know if Councilmember Duff, you have any information on the high-rise there, 7 or 8 story there, 20 North Robeson? But anyway, it's under development
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So if we're going to do this, we need to protect our assets and allow the seniors to remain there. Who knows, any one of us could be in there, so.
What are you trying to say?
There's options out there.
Yeah, so the point is, we need to acquire the property, and then we would come back probably to council before we're issuing the RFP to
Yeah.
kind of go through these kind of conditions. But first and foremost, we want to get the authorization to acquire the property using these federal funds.
Yeah.
Then once we get ready to do the process, we can come back with these specifics, conditions, or the terms of the RFP that we'll be looking for. Then we would come back to council upon selection of the preferred developer and move forward from there.
And Mayor and Council, if I could do real quickly, the acquisition of this property, so if the council approves to move forward with the acquisition of this property, it would still be contingent on, we do need a new appraisal. The appraisal is okay for city terms, but it is timed out for HUD terms. It has to be within 6 months. So we would be doing that. We would also be doing the HUD environmental, which can take up to 60 days. So as we're doing this acquisition going forward, we'd also be starting to work on the request for proposal outline.
Thank you. Mr. Summers?
Under fiscal impact on the third page of the council report, it says it mentions the NSP dollars at 1.926, and then it said remaining funding from the general fund. Do we have any specifics on where that general fund money is coming from, and is that ongoing money operationally, or is it just one-time monies?
Thank you, Mayor and Councilmember Summers. We do. That is actually sourced back through one of our HUD programs. So we had a project that was allocated home dollars. The out project was deemed as ineligible. We had to repay HUD for those home dollars. We were able to get a reimbursement from the developer for a portion of that. And those are the funds that they happen to go through the general fund as part of that process.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
So,
know.
yes.
If it was that, or if it was local sales tax dollars or anything else that was going through. But it's HUD dollars,
Correct.
it comes from the pot.
It comes from
From
our
the
HUD
general
pot,
fund.
but just because of a project
Okay.
was deemed ineligible and there was a transaction with HUD, it flows through the general fund as part of
Correct.
that transaction, but they are not your typical general fund dollars. It's not using any kind of tax dollars or state shared
Yeah,
revenues or
thank you for
anything like
that. I was aware of that, but it wasn't really clear out of this, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Alicia?
My only question, I know there's restrictions with funding and the fact that it will be a land lease, but is a multifamily rentable product the best use? Is that what is needed for affordable senior housing? I just raised that question.
There is, Mayor and Councilmember Goforth, we need a variety of housing, right? And the Balanced Housing Master Plan identifies different types of senior housing, which is the standard. There could be the owner senior housing, rental senior housing, assisted living senior housing, So there's different levels that we need.
Right.
We need them in all of the areas. And so this particular parcel is less than 1 acre. And so the best use of this particular parcel would be the multifamily senior affordable housing.
Rentable.
Rentable,
Yes.
rentable,
As opposed to owner.
yes.
Okay. And how do you determine, I mean, obviously, it's affordable, so it's lower income, so, but how do you determine whether it should be rentable or owner occupied? Even if it's in a multifamily setting, even if it's in a, you know,
So versus a townhome kind of condition?
Or like
So
a
we-
no, I
Condo.
just mean rented versus owned. How are you coming to the conclusion
I
that
think it's just-
this should be a rentable property
Yeah.
and not ownership?
I think, again, it goes to the affordability and individuals having the equity to contribute towards a purchase. And so typically, when we're talking about this level of affordability at, what did you say, were you at 50? What were?
But it's really at, the housing needs are within that 50% or lower.
So it's a
The project
pretty
for last year had a
difficult-
combination.
A lot of those individuals have a difficult time
Owning,
qualifying
sure.
for ownership. So this is really an effort to try to find an opportunity to house seniors that are really in that very precarious position.
But we have existing senior affordable housing here downtown, you just mentioned, right?
No.
We don't have, we.
That,
okay.
the development we're talking about is actually no longer senior. It was a private,
The high rise, but
offer.
Esposito, or the other one.
oh, Escobedo is.
Escobedo is not
What about
senior.
It's not senior.
Encore.
Oh, right.
Encore.
Is that, I guess that is that considered senior?
Phase one was,
Yeah,
I think
I guess it
that's
was,
age
wasn't it?
restricted.
Yeah. But that was not, I guess, did they get home funds from us? I don't
They
remember.
did not.
I don't think so.
I'm just,
They might have gotten some credits for seniors, but it was more of a private development.
and how many units is that?
Ooh, it's not very many, right? It's probably,
under 200,
oh, yeah, easily, right? Yeah,
I don't know.
it's not a lot.
I forgot.
Again, this is addressing the gap at the lowest, demographic of seniors is, I think, what we're trying to do. We have not, I'm not aware of any other senior affordable housing that, from a federal funding that the city has participated in anytime recently. So this would be the first time we've been able to leverage that. And this is site-specific, right? I mean, we are interested because we've identified a site that's so close to the senior center, so it just kind of falls into it, kind of matches up that this seems like a good place to have, because that senior center does provide a lot of services that would be great in supporting, especially seniors that are on a very fixed low income. So I think that we just feel like it's kind of more of a opportunity of the geographic location here than anything
For
else.
sure, and I completely agree. I was just raising the question of, should it be rentable or should it be
Yeah, and
owner?
maybe in
I
other
know that's a
locations,
different demographic.
maybe that would make
Yeah.
sense. But I think for this particular area, we are really targeting kind of that lower end of the demographic.
And then, so when you look at the city and you say we have a more aging population than countywide, have you looked where in the city? I'm just curious. Can you deep dive that?
Oh, yeah.
Is it-
Matter of
Is it
fact-
mostly in the downtown area? 'Cause
You know,
I would argue
it's not,
the
it's
district.
not. We actually it's not quite the same, but we actually we're looking at utility, our discounts for seniors that we have, the program we had, and yesterday we were getting a presentation on that, where the senior population that's taken advantage of that. And certainly around downtown West Mesa, but around Dreamland Village and that area, what would you call that, central, north, not north, but central part of Mesa, there was a significant population that was taking advantage, or accounts taking it on that. And then you go further out east, and so it's not really, it's hard to say. I mean, there are definitely pockets,
Yeah.
but there are pockets throughout the city. It's just interesting how it was spread.
But there's enough of a pocket here, you think, that
Oh,
there's
well,
the
I think
demand
because,
for-
again, the services, I think what will
Right.
attract individuals here is, yes, there's a current demand, but I think that amenity of having that senior center close by will be a great benefit to attract individuals to this location.
And Mayor and Council, last year, the developer who was attempting to do this did have an agreement with the senior center for programming and services, and that does help the LIHTC application as well. It's that partnership with a nonprofit to provide services to the residents.
So I'm jumping in. So that was my question. If, I remember a presentation, but I didn't know what the current development is, that they're offering wraparound services to the seniors to make sure they're getting the care and resources they need.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was, well, and again, Mayor and Councilmember Duff, that was last year's application. So I want to be clear. I mean, we're using last year's application as a model for what could happen at this site and the partnerships that could happen. If we acquire the site, again, with the request for proposals, it would be open to any housing developer to come in with that same, like, what are they going to propose for the site? But we would also be requiring the wraparound services. We would be requiring senior affordable housing. Those types of things would all stay in place from our side on what our requirements are.
So using these dollars, the
NSP.
NSP dollars, let's say the developer is not successful in their application for LIHTC. Is this a contingent situation, or we're going to?
No, we'd own the property.
So-
We would go ahead and proceed with this, and so therefore, if they fail for whatever reason or don't come through, then we would do an RFP for a similar project. It has to be affordable.
I think we would keep
We-
doing it, yeah.
Yeah, we would, the intent, and I have that in my last bullet here, but if the intent on this, the good part about the NSP funding is it does allow land banking. So if it doesn't happen in that first year,
Okay.
we're not penalized for that, where we would under some of the other HUD programs.
We're optimistic.
Yeah,
Ann
but
is very
I mean, we're
optimistic that we were
optimistic.
so close that we think this will give us the additional points.
And
do
we've
better.
had multiple conversations with the state about the program and what can we do more? How can we just show you how supportive we are of a senior affordable housing at this particular location? And so we've done our due diligence with the state, and this was their recommendation. Their recommendation is that, well, there's another box that you can check, when you come through here. The good thing about the NSP dollars, again, it does allow land banking, meaning if we're not successful in this round, because it is a crunch between now and this April 1st to get all of this done. But if we're not successful, the request for proposal would be awarded contingent on receiving the LIHTC dollars. And if they don't receive the LIHTC dollars, then it doesn't go into effect. We would do another request for proposals next fall, and we would go again and try again. And so we could do this every year until we had senior affordable housing on this particular piece of property, because again, we own it and we control the use of that property.
Well, I definitely like it. Just, I'm trying to remember the statistics on it, but there, nationally, I think AARP had this thing that there'll be more people over 65 by 2030 than under 18. So it shows a huge shift in the demographics of having an aging population, especially the baby boomers are, completely in retirement. And I know it affects our homelessness. It's a big percent of the people who are homeless are seniors, and it's not a matter of helping them through workforce development. Sometimes they have health issues. It's about having an affordable place to live. There aren't a lot of solutions other than having an affordable place to live. I like having it downtown because downtown is more affordable in the respect you don't have to own a car. We're developing it so that you can be in a situation of using maybe our downtown buzz, or having amenities and services within walking distance, and having more of a, walkable, inviting neighborhood, and so that people don't have to own a car or be isolated from society because they can't reach transportation. So it makes sense, and especially across the street from the Astor Center. So I think it's a good development, regardless if this proceeds with this developer or on a future one. Thank you.
And Mayor and Council, I should mention, just to put it in perspective, the application from last year was regarding 64 units, and so that could be put on this particular area, and so that would be 64 units across from our senior center. I can't guarantee that going to the future, we'll see how the RFP would go, but that's, if we putting numbers to that particular site, we think it should be about 60.
Great. I'll just underline everything that's been said. This is such a good idea given the proximity to the senior center, that it really has to happen. And when this project came up just, barely short last time, I had a conversation with the State Housing Department, and they were quick to acknowledge that they were anxious to fund this. I mean, it was a no-brainer that this is the right thing to do. But it was just the reality of math, that they were committed to other projects and they were out of money. So we challenged them to be innovative and to help us figure out how to do this, and they've come up with something I think is great. I mean, these are all HUD dollars that need to be used for affordable housing, and so I think my compliments to our staff and to the State Housing Department for being innovative to figure out how to put together what really, like I say, it's such a good idea that it just absolutely has to happen. So I'm very optimistic that the LIHTC scoring will go very well if we are part of this presentation and we contribute city money that needs to be spent for these purposes anyway. So I just want to say thank you to staff and to the State Department for realizing that this needs to happen. Council, any other discussion on this? So this will be on the consent agenda for Monday.
Yes.
Correct.
Great, thank you. Mr. Brady, any other staff presentations? Yes, Alicia. You're first.
I had a question on 4F, the additional vendor awards. If you could just give a little background on this, that I understand we're adding vendors. I think I understand. But we're also increasing the dollar amount and.
Yes. Morning, Mayor and Council. Mike Lewis, Police Services. Yes, so these vendors that we're requesting are vendors that we've currently had under other contracts before. They fall on and off different contracts, so we have to pick them back up again. They're the original original equipment manufacturers for a lot of these vehicles. So the increase also comes with the additional vendors being added to the contract, that now we're going to be sending these vehicles or acquiring parts from them.
So I guess that's my question. So the increase of $1 million now is because we realize there's a bigger need for,
It swaps from one contract. They were on a previous contract, now moving over
it's
to a
not
different contract.
increasing the budget,
Yeah,
really?
because
Okay.
they're moving what contract they were
Okay,
on.
that's my question. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Council, other questions for Monday? Mr. Freeman.
I do. 7A, we're still working through the process, but what I would suggest, Chris, is we have a presentation on that on Monday's study session, and that way the developer or any other comments can be heard at that time. That's the,
You want a presentation from staff on 7A?
yeah.
Okay.
On Monday.
Okay.
And I talked to Mary a little bit about that, so.
She looks like-
There's been some changes and updates, and we
Okay.
can go through that, but just minor.
We'll do that in the study session on Monday, is that what you would like? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Sounds good. Council, anything else regarding Monday's agenda? Mark, you want to keep it on consent, but just get a presentation and then see?
We'll see what the appetite is. It
We
may
can always
be
move it
pulled
off that
consent.
one, if we need, or that after.
Let's leave it on consent for now, and
Yeah,
then
we can always take it off.
we take it off.
Great. All right, thank you. Let's move on. If there's no other questions regarding Monday's agenda, let's move on to the agenda for this meeting. Item 2A is a presentation and update on the Sun Air renovation project and the Off the Streets program. Candace and Lindsay, welcome.
Good morning again, Mayor and Council. Candace Canestrayo, Deputy City Manager, and with me today is Lindsay Belinky. She is one of the Deputy Directors in Community Services. And we'd like to give you an update on the Off the Streets program, and then on Monday's agenda, you also have for consideration a contract to renovate our Sun Air property, formerly known as the Grand Hotel. So you will not hear us say Grand Hotel anymore, it is the Sun Air property as we go forward.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. So as we speak about homelessness, we'd just like to bring up our strategy for addressing homelessness, our pathway to housing, and our Off the Streets program fits within that first category of emergency response, really providing that 90 days of immediate shelter to get people off the streets. This is our graduated approach that we really look to when we're creating programs, investing funds, and creating services. We do have our statistics for this program as well. So what we're really seeing over the lifetime of the program, and again, that's been since May of 2020, so about 4.5 years. We have been able to serve about 2,700 individuals, and that includes 447 families. That's about 23% of our clients are youth under the age of 18. So we're seeing about 613 children in those families that we're serving. And we have gone from having as few as 10 family rooms. Right now we have 30 family rooms to accommodate that increased need that we've seen over the last couple of years, where there's more and more families that unfortunately are falling into homelessness. We also see about half of our clientele that we serve are female. A large portion, 22% are survivors of domestic violence. And we do see seniors 62 and over. We have about 10% of that age population. Today in our program, we have about 62 individuals that are over the age of 55, and about half of those are over the age of 65. So we do see that consistently present in our program. Additionally, just as a reminder, we do provide those wraparound services. So as people come into the program, they are assigned a caseworker that helps them get situated into a safe space as they're coming off the street out of homelessness. And then they work with them on establishing a housing plan. So that's as basic as going out and getting their ID, and that really allows them to qualify for services, assessing what services people are eligible for and getting them connected or reconnected to those services, to medications, to other things that are essential in them just stabilizing and being able to move through that housing plan, which typically involves going to the next best place for them in their pathway. So that might be a bridge housing facility, it might be another shelter, or it might be immediately back to independent housing of their own. And we see about 70% of our clients taking that positive exit out of our program into that next positive place for them to go through that pathway to housing. We also provide transportation for those needed services as they're working through their housing plan. Additionally, this has really been a service tool for our Mesa first responders. So we collaborate, the Office of Homeless Solutions, regularly with all of our first responder teams. They can refer folks into this program as they encounter someone that is experiencing homelessness in a park or somewhere on the streets through our police and fire and park rangers. We do also provide that congregate space at our current location where we can have emergency cots. It's been referred to in the past as our dusk to dawn room. That's really where we may not have a room for them to go through the program, but we can get them off the streets, kind of assess where the next place for them to be, maybe East Valley Men's Shelter or another place within the community, and then help nurture, and get them to that next place. We are ranging from 85 to 113 rooms because we have had available funding in the last year to increase up to 113, and we're going back down to 85 soon just based on our available funds.
Julie.
Before we move on to like the details of what we want to do to the property, how full are we every night? How long of a wait list do we have? What does that look like right now?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Spilsbury. Within our families, I can tell you, we have those 30 rooms. They're all full today. I was in conversations yesterday where we have at least 3 families waiting in line. Same with our other rooms. So we're seeing a high utilization rate of those rooms consistently. I can get you some data on that. I unfortunately don't have it right now with me. But when we're not seeing utilization, it's typically because There's a need to service the room, do a maintenance check, and flip the room over is where we're seeing a little bit of that non-usage, but typically we're completely full.
So, over the weekend, two different friends of mine ran across so these are two different people, ran into like a vet, an elderly vet that had nowhere to go. And they could not find a place for them. One ended up staying with a friend and one slept in a friend's van. They called all the numbers, they called all the, like there was no place. And also over the weekend, there's not, like, they say, call Monday morning, right? Like, there's just not emergency 24-hour services for these people. So these two friends of mine were very frustrated that they called City of Mesa, then they called this number, this number, this number. They didn't feel like the process was easy to navigate, and that at the end of the day, after all of that work, there was nowhere for these two men to go. And so I'm just like, I hate hearing that, right? That like in the City of Mesa, we can't help a vet get off the street and have a bed over the weekend. So I'm just wondering, like, where are the gaps in these services and that we're trying so hard and we're doing so well in so many areas, but there's still gaps, obviously.
Yeah, Councilmember Spilsbury. So we were texting a little bit back and forth during that situation. Unfortunately, there are not enough beds for all the people that need them right now. So we are filling up our beds. East Valley Men's Center is doing that as well. We know they're creating some additional options at their facility.
For the emergency beds? Or like the
The transitional space, the bridge
well, yeah,
space.
so that wouldn't affect these people though. Although I guess
it does allow to
Okay.
move people through the system.
To
But
open
at
up
the
30
same
more
time,
beds or
Every
something.
level of housing will eventually kind of, if we can, whether it's bridge housing or permanent, you just say
Move
moving
people
people
through the
through.
path.
But it's the dilemma, right? So it's
Yeah.
across the valley
Yeah.
that's just not, regardless of our efforts. And we've been, I mean, this is so much more than we've ever been able to
Right.
provide. But it's the challenge, right? That even for our first responders out there, if there's someone who is willing to, to find shelter and they call and the Windermere is full, there really isn't any option
And
for them to
East Valley
do.
Men's was full, and any veteran services said call on Monday morning. And I mean, I know what we're doing, and I know that it's way more than we ever did do. But one I knew in the middle of it, the other one I didn't find out till afterwards. But again, they're posting on Facebook. They're so frustrated that the City of Mesa can't help these people, right? Like it's
Right, and it's
it-
every city, right? So,
Yeah, so, but I guess it did make me wonder, I mean, I know our hotline isn't necessarily 24/7 yet, is it, or is it?
we do have a hotline, Councilmember, for our first responders that is 24/7 because they're
Okay.
typically the ones that are encountering people overnight and that kind of thing. But we don't have a public hotline. There is a access to care line that's available for the county, and that would include Mesa. So there are
basically
some.
when you call, you get a number to
But what
call.
you're describing is common. What we're seeing in the region is that with a lot of the federal funds from ARPA that are falling
Yeah.
off, we're seeing other programs that are closing.
Where it's just
Well, even
And
as you heard
so-
Lindsay say, we're gonna have to go from 113 to 85.
85,
Unless we
yeah.
come back in the budget cycle and talk about adding back, these are funds from the county?
The county.
From the
The
county,
state.
state. So we've got, we're gonna have to have that discussion because it's a challenge now at 113. We're gonna drop down to 85.
Right.
So we need to decide whether we wanna, go back up to 113, but that will require funds from the city. We've relied upon other sources outside the city for that.
Okay, I mean, there's just, I say it all the time, there's just so many resources out there for you. If you need help in the City of Mesa, there's a way to get help, but maybe not on the weekend, or maybe not when
There are
you, I
times
mean,
when we're at
yeah.
capacity, absolutely.
Well, and you might
Yeah.
call realistically today during the middle of the day and there's not, we're getting you on a wait list or we're
Yes,
connecting you to
yes.
the next available bed, but there might not be a bed, unfortunately, for everyone that needs it right now.
Now, this, Sunair, will help us move most of what Lindsay or Candace just identified
most
as our
vulnerable.
seniors and women.
Domestic
Families.
And
violence.
so that will then, so it is gonna grow our
I
capacity.
just worry because it's 60 rooms, so that's
No,
gonna
it'll go
like
quick,
that.
but then it'll make room for additional,
Some
for
other-
the single men over at the Windermere too. So, but I suspect we'll be full soon after we open up.
That's the thing, like when I'm out and talking with the public and nonprofits and people who work in this space, like, I mean, like you said, at what point is it, where do we draw the line? Because there's always more need than we have the money to be able to do. But yet, at the same time, I want us to all remember, these are people. Like this, my friend running across this vet in front of Circle K is a person that had nowhere to go that night, right? Like, so, I don't know, these are hard decisions.
We agree, yeah.
Yeah.
Quick
Okay.
question, are we going to retain the rooms at the Windermere?
The 85, right? We're gonna be able to fund the 85.
Well, so Mayor and Council, we're reviewing that. Right now, we don't have the funds to both run Sun Air and then keep all of the rooms at Windermere. So we will be keeping rooms at Windermere. We'll be keeping as many as we can. Right now, we're estimating we might need to go down to 50.
But we'll have to come back. It's a resource issue. We'll have to talk about in the budget about what are we going to do. Is this gonna take a while to get this done?
Yes, this will be a 12-month construction process. We are entering into a contract with the Windermere at the 85-room level for the next 2 years. We'll be doing that, knowing that we can't fully fund all of those rooms for the full 2 years, but we're going to contract with those so that if we do find other funding that we can apply to it, we'll already have the contract in place. But right now, we don't have funding identified for the full 2 years at the 85-room level.
Did we tap out on the ARPA dollars, right?
Yes.
So I think I heard you say it's a 12-month process to get Sun Air, to cut the ribbon on Sun Air. So
Yes.
is the ETA 12 months from now, or?
It would be, yes, so Mayor, it would be 12 months. I'm going to estimate February. So right now, what's on your contract or on your agenda for Monday night is to award the contract to the lowest bidder. And then we would work on actually contracting with them, hope to have them contracted within 30 days. And then they would need that ramp up time. So we're estimating that January, February timeframe, so it'd be 12 months from there. So if we figure maybe February of 26 would be the opening. As we're kind of jumping ahead, but as we open Sun Air, the goal for that we would be opening it with the new intake, so that folks who are at the Windermere would not move to Sun Air. It would be as the new people come in, we would start filling those rooms. It allows the staff to get familiar with the building, with the programs, and kind of like ease us into, although we know with the capacity we have and the wait list we have, I think it's going to fill very fast just with those new folks coming in. But the goal would be not picking somebody up from Windermere and moving them to Sun Air, let them be stable, let them stay at Windermere, and then the new ones would come in to Sun Air. So we could take care of those wait lists that we had at the time that we opened.
Great.
Quick question about the contract with Windermere. How does that work? So we contract for 2 years just to have availability. It doesn't obligate us.
Correct. We do
Okay.
have a mayor and council member go forth. We have a notification, 30-day notification if we want to decrease the number of rooms.
Okay.
But you lock in a price?
We lock in the price with an inflation factor for the second year, but we lock in the price like we would in any other kind of contract that we have with the city, but we do have an out clause if we have notification.
Lindsay, what are you
Sufficient
paying per room
notification.
right now?
I believe it's $13.50.
So when we come back to council and talk about extending this, that's the context we'll be giving you is, I don't know where we can beat that price, right? And provide the wraparound services. But we need we're kind of expiring all the federal dollars, the county dollars, and so kind of letting those go through, and then we would come back to council and say, okay, that's done. Now, how much of the city general fund we want to contribute to this?
Yeah, and mayor and council, and we're doing that now, like every city across the country is doing that right now, as we're looking at that expiration of ARPA dollars. We're looking at, things have to be obligated by this December for the ARPA dollars, and then those that are done have to be spent, right, by 26. And so we're all doing that. We're looking at all of our programs, we're looking at all of our funding sources, where can we find other funding sources, how much we put to this program versus this program. And we went through and we did that exercise as we look at, okay, well, Sun Air is going to start coming up, but we also have to do street outreach, and we have to do Windermere still, and we have to do all of these other programs. And we really started looking at our pots of funding and which is the best use of that funding, on which program, when does it run out? And that's when we started looking at, we really, at this point, need to assume that we're gonna have to decrease our rooms in 2026 at the Windermere. But it's far away, we get that, but we have to start planning now. So if we know that, then we have this time to start looking for other funding sources or other options, or what is it that we're going to do? Because the issue's not gonna go away in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, 1350 is a great rate, and so I would think that if we run out of public dollars, I mean, I could see a philanthropic movement, you know, among the faith community or otherwise to say, hey, you know, to Julie's point, for 1350, if there's a homeless vet in front of a Circle K, you know, we can find the community will to find $13.50 to put that.
We'll come back to
person on.
council with a full picture of what it would take to maximize the room.
Yeah. All right, well, that's great, and I love Sun Air. I'm tired of calling it the homeless motel, so I like the new vocabulary. Thank you.
And if you're wondering why Sun Air, well, Sun Air is the street that is adjacent to this particular property. So it wasn't the Creativity of Community Services and myself. I know, but it does sound great, doesn't it?
You named the Off the Streets program after a street.
The hotel, yes.
The location.
The location, the location. The Off the Streets program is more than a location. So the Sun Air. So Sun Air, here's a map of where Sun Air is. And so it's off of Main and Power. It was previously the Grand Hotel. It was built in 2 phases in 1973 and 1985. We did have, the council use permit was approved in November of 2023, and then the city closed on the purchase in December of 2023. Just as a reminder, the acquisition cost was $7.6 million, and that was funded through ARPA. $4 million of that was through the Maricopa County's ARPA funds, and then the rest of it was the City of Mesa's ARPA funds. But overall, it was all from the ARPA funds. Our renovation costs are looking at $6.3 million based on our bids. Our design was $500,000, with construction being around the $5.8 million. The contract that's on the Monday is for 5.8 total, including contingency. My 5.8 has a little bit of other, doesn't have any contingencies, but we have other costs besides just the contract. We have our staff time and those types of things that are included. So I wanted to give you kind of that full picture of the 5.8 here without the contingency. The funding is from the City of Mesa ARPA funds. And as long as we are able to move forward and contract with the construction, by December, we will meet our ARPA requirements for obligating our funds within the time frame required. This is just as a reminder, as part of the council use permit, there was a good neighbor policy, and this is really just highlighting exactly what was listed in that good neighbor policy, but I'm going to go over it a little bit more just as we talk about the site itself, but just as a reminder, that is part of the council use permit, so that was documented. So Sun Air is located at 6733 East Main Street. The focus of this particular site is on those vulnerable populations of families, seniors, and domestic violence survivors. And again, that was part of the council use permit, that those would be the demographics that would be housed at this particular location. It is limited to Mesa residents, and they are referral only, so there are no walk-ups. So someone cannot just walk up. It would have to come through our first responders. So even if it is a resident who does find somebody, we do need to go through the channels for that. They can't just bring them to this location. They will not accept walk-ups. It is 64 rooms in the final design. We did do some flexible room. You heard Lindsay talk about family rooms, and that's really just that ability to have your children in a secure area where the parents are. And so for this particular design, we have put a lot of the connecting doors that were not in the original model of this building. So each set of 2 are connecting doors that can be locked for separate use or can be open for family use. And so that's where we're talking about, we're really opening up the ability to service families and have them be in a secure area with their other family members. Pet-friendly rooms is also something that we have a problem with at Windermere. We only have very few that are pet-friendly or pet-allowed rooms. All of the rooms here have been designed for easy wash, easy maintenance, and therefore will be able to now allow pets more than we were able to allow pets at Windermere. Sometimes that is a barrier to receiving services, is not wanting to be separated from their pet. And then this, because of the age of this particular building, we did have to retrofit with some ADA ramps and walkways because they were not compliance with current code. There's a multi-function space. We did have to use a couple of the rooms to create that intake area separate, so some staff area for them to do their case management, but also an intake area also with a couple of computers that will be in there for also doing online, whether it's online work applications, online or access, medical insurance, or anything else that they need to do, apply for their ID. Well, they'll have staff who will be able to help them go online and do all those things that they need to get done. Again, we talked about it being a closed campus. It will have 24/7 police presence. We are not quite 24/7 at Windermere, but this will have an actual assigned shift at this particular location for Sun Air. And then the 24-hour program management. So we'll have somebody from our nonprofit that will be there. We do not know the nonprofit at this time. We're keeping that open. It may be CBI, who's currently our nonprofit program management at Windermere, but it may not because there are more nonprofits out there in this space. And we'll, as we get farther along in construction, we'll start looking at that as also a request for proposals on somebody who would like to oversee this particular program. When we look at the physical, so here we have an example. This is on the south, looking north into the property. And you can see on the left-hand side is what it looked like when it was operating as a hotel. And on the right-hand side is the renderings of what it would look like post-construction. It does not show the gate there, so I wanted to make sure that I showed you a sample of the gate. This particular location, entrance on the south, would be only used for solid waste vehicles to exit the property. So there would not be any traffic coming in or out of the south end of the location. This is what goes directly into the neighborhood. Okay, so when they're going south, they're going directly into the neighborhood that's just south of them. And so while we will have the gate, it will be gated so you can't see in. Again, the only ones that should go through are the solid waste vehicles as they come from a north to south to do the route. Here's just an aerial of what the property looks like to remind you down in the bottom left corner is what the property looks like at the time that we took it over. And you can see that south, so on the left-hand side of the screen, that's that south entrance we just talked about that goes into the neighborhood, so that would be gated. There is an entrance also on the east side that will also have the same similar type of a gate. The really only need for that is if we have delivery trucks or something to that effect that will not be able to do a U-turn. They'll be able to come in from the north and then go out the gate to the east after they do their deliveries. So we want to make sure that they had a route to get through. All traffic will be coming in and out of the north side. So clients will be coming in and out of the north side, staff will come in and out of the north side. That will be the main entrance coming in and out. The other two will always be gated unless we need to get a truck out. One of the things we're really excited about is that we were very worried about the bid on this. And the city manager's laughing because I was so worried every time I came to him and said, I don't know if we can afford everything that we want and that we need right at this particular site. This is a low bid award, and a low bid award means we don't get to negotiate after the fact. So we have to make sure that everything that we put in the bid is exactly what we want and what we need, and we can't take things out if the bid's too high. And so what we did is we took things out ahead of time and made them alternates and said, well, if the bid comes in too high, here's the things that we could do later. We could do the playground later, the play area. And you heard how many children come through this particular program. We know it's a need, but we could do it later. We need to replace some of the AC units, but some of them are okay. Maybe we do that later. The windows need to be replaced because they're the thin, all the air is just going to go out. But it's a cost, and maybe we do those later. So the good news is we had 5 bids, 3 that were accepted by procurement, and the bid came actually in under our engineering estimate. And so we're very excited that we actually get to include everything, including the playground. So I know everyone's not as excited as I am, but
That was an
it's just, but it was one of those, do the kids get to
That was an
play?
exciting day in
It was-
this so.
I ran
Bigger
into,
response than that.
I ran into the city manager's office and I said, the kids get to play. And, because we were just so worried. So we also have an area for the dog service area. Again, we talked about being dog friendly. And make sure that there's an area for them that are separated so the children are in one area where they're servicing the dogs are in another area. And so we feel that we were very, made use of every single space on this particular site. The two areas that we see, they look like they're big open spaces, but they're actually basins because we do have to do the water, has to be retained on site, and it all flows down in a southerly manner, and we want to make sure it stays out of the
Those are the corners?
The two corners, if you look on the left-hand side of this, that top corner and the bottom corner, those are both basins. And so it looks like big recreation areas, but they're actually basins to hold the water on there. So
Retention for stormwater.
for stormwater. All the other, like any other area, we tried to make sure that we looked at exactly what we needed and you made use of every space we could, whether it was storage or staff space, programming space, that type of thing. The lobby will be much easier for people to come in, but they will be coming in again. They're being dropped off, so this isn't a walk-up location. But I just want to give an aerial of what we're looking at here. When we talked about this particular location, we talked about that neighborhood to the south. We did talk about that neighborhood used to be in the county before it came into the city of Mesa. And so some of the standards are not quite the standards where the city of Mesa would be requiring it if we were to build it today. And so we went into that neighborhood to see what we could do to kind of lift that area up. And these are the things that we have done so far. So we have, the streetlights have all been changed out to the LED as part of our LED conversion for our streetlights, which really kind of, it was very dark. When I would drive through that, it was just a very dark neighborhood. The streetlights were not giving off that much. There also were no streetlights on the north-south roads. The streetlights were only where the houses were, but not on the connecting roads. And so we have added streetlights to those north-south roads to try to give it meet the city of Mesa type of requirements. We've also gone in and done both crack sealing and slurry sealing on the roads, and I believe that was actually just completed about 2 weeks ago. So it's very fresh that getting in there and being able to do that. We offered a shade tree program workshop through our environmental, just like we've done with other ones, but how if they wanted to learn how to put shade trees on their own property and take care of those. And during the last Love Your City event, we also had some alley cleanups because they are alleys in that particular neighborhood, and they have some issues in those.
I just also wanted to point out that we had looked at doing sidewalks and there wasn't room.
There was not room.
So
We did.
in case anyone was wondering, just because there was neighbors in the middle of all of this that wanted sidewalks, and when they're old county streets and there just wasn't room to put in the sidewalks, which made some people really sad, but there was just nothing we could do about that.
Yes, and Mayor and Councilmember Spilsbury, we did look at it for sidewalks. And if you go through that neighborhood, there is a lot of on-the-street parking as well, and that's what you would also be giving up. So it's not, you can do the on-the-street parking and a sidewalk to do that in that neighborhood. So we focused on the roads themselves and just trying to light up the neighborhood. The site improvements we've done so far at this particular site, as we did put the security fences and secured it to make sure that everybody stays out. We also have routine site walks from staff members who are there on a weekly, if not bi-weekly basis to make sure that everything looks good, that nobody has, broken into a door or something and is living inside, so those are all secured. We installed perimeter cameras that are linked to the real-time crime center, so they're out on the streets kind of focused in at the perimeter, making sure that everything looks good. We've fully, everything is out of it, all of the old furniture is out of it, and that allowed us to do the asbestos removal because it is an older building, as well as pest control was completed on all of those buildings as well. And then just the general landscape maintenance. So we've just kind of been maintaining it along the way, doing kind of the minimal landscape right now so that it doesn't look like the vacant property when it comes to landscape until we start our construction. And then the construction crew will take that over.
I have a question, Candace. So when you say added streetlights and some of these improvements to the neighborhood, what are we considering the neighborhood? How far south and west?
I believe there's a neighborhood to the south that it goes out to Power. And then I don't know how far,
67.
do you know
I'm
how
just
far
looking
it
at
goes?
the
To
map on
the
your presentation.
hospital, right behind the
Because
hospital.
Banner Hospital is Banner
And over
Baywood
to
is just
64th Street, I
south.
believe.
I'm sorry, 64th Street?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, that 64th would be the
The
west
west
boundary,
side.
right?
So
believe
here's kind of
so,
the
yeah.
aerial, and you can see where it kind
Yeah.
of, the neighborhood stops, and there's more like commercial. So it should be,
Oh, it goes all the way,
yeah, that whole area was county,
okay,
and then annexed into the city of Mesa.
okay.
Yeah, it looks like 60.
So we did 56th Street, streetlights, we did 66, 67.
There was 7 to 9 streetlights that we needed to install on those kind of north-south roads. The east-west roads had the streetlights, but we just needed to convert them over to the LED lights.
Okay. And it wouldn't be I wouldn't be doing my duty if I didn't challenge you on the sidewalk issue. So how wide are those streets? I mean, are we, and maybe I can ask you offline, but I mean, oh, there he is.
Knew there was a reason I came.
That's all right. Not gonna get away with it.
I'd have to get the measurements for you, council
Okay.
member, but we'd be right up to like the front door of some of the houses. It's really tight, so
Oh.
I can provide the measurements, but
Okay.
one, it would have cost $4 to $5 million if I'm going from memory, but more importantly is just physically there wasn't enough room. Because we don't have enough right-of-way, so we would have had to acquire right-of-way through the whole neighborhood to put the sidewalks in, and it just wasn't gonna work out.
When you have cars parking on both sides.
Cars are parking on both
Yeah,
sides.
it's pretty
Yeah.
tight.
So I mean, are there driveways?
Yes.
Do these, okay.
But to clarify on the streetlights, we did install 9 additional LED streetlights on the north-south streets, as Candace mentioned, and part of the goal was to help light the alleys, because that was a concern that came from the neighborhood about people getting into the alleys. There's one alley in particular that doesn't have gates, and it's because people use it as access to their own garages. And so putting up a gate wasn't practical, or gates at both ends, so putting up the lights on the north-south streets should provide an additional measure of
So-
safety.
Sorry, clarify again, are these streets county? You said this is
No,
county.
it wasn't the-
When they were built.
Okay,
It
these are
was
city
built to the
streets.
standards in the county.
Okay.
So that's why we don't have the same width of right of way. We wouldn't have the curbs.
But these are
gutters.
city streets, which is why
Okay.
we were able to go in and do our crack sealing
But that
and
was
slurry sealing.
after it was annexed
built.
in, not when it was originally built.
Do we kind of talk to the neighbors and get their feedback on sidewalks versus street parking? I mean, you know, maybe they would rather have sidewalks than street parking. I don't know, if that's something, you know,
Honestly, I don't think there's gonna be enough room to do that in the
Even-
driveways. I
even
think people are
to-
using the street parking because they have to. I don't think, I'm going from memory, but I don't think, a lot of people may have stuff in their garages and, you know, the driveways aren't big enough to support, you know, a household, you know, of folks. So there's a lot of people that park on the street.
Just go drive through there, it's an interesting neighborhood. Yeah, they're just really
Really
small,
small, though.
really
Small
small lots, very old.
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And I think with that, and then that was just, we'd already talked about the timeline, so we hope to be underway January, February, so early in 2025, and hope to be finished in early of 2026.
Thank you, council. Let me just say, I think this is going to be a point of pride for our community. I appreciate the thoughtful planning that's gone into this and the attention to the neighborhoods. And I think we need to be committed to this being a project that will welcome people to come and judge our community by. And I think it will hold up well. So I just want to say thank you to putting the effort into it to make it something that we can all be proud of. Mr. Summers.
It's all the way back here. Would you be able to provide me with a breakdown on, so under fiscal impact, the 5.8 million, where the funding buckets are from? So is it all HUD home dollars? Or
No,
is it
ARPA.
This is
general
all
fund?
ARPA.
All ARPA dollars?
Everything is
Okay,
ARPA,
so
that
it's
you're,
coming out.
anything for this site is on the ARPA.
So no impact, at least for this project at this point, on the general fund?
not for the, not for
Other than the police
refurbishing.
officer, yeah.
Yeah, mayor and council,
But that's
correct,
ours.
other than the police officers. So the presence of the police has always been in the general fund, but when we talk about the construction of this particular site, all of the renovation is through the ARPA funds.
Okay. Question on inside, that we didn't see any pictures of the design on the inside. Are there going to be cooking units on the inside of this?
Mayor and Councilmember Summers, they are not. So there is not, they will be provided in the lobby. We have some refrigerators where we'll have some food service that will be brought in and be passed out to the residents. There will be no cooking in the rooms
They were,
themselves.
yeah, they were not.
And they're not- they don't do that today.
They weren't plumbed for it, they didn't have the outlets or the plumbing for it.
Electrical.
Yeah,
There will be a-
yeah,
there
we
will be
didn't
like
get
a
inside
microwave.
till,
There'll be, there'll be like the mini fridge and the microwave
The
like you
rooms
would
are too
normally
small, they
have.
wouldn't have accommodated that.
so common so basically just common microwaves, the kind of thing
Then-
you would get in a normal hotel room.
Mayor and Councilmember Summers, correct. The same type of like a mini fridge with the microwave so they can have their own snacks and so forth. But when it comes to like meal prep, that would not happen in the rooms.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the update. Council, any additional questions?
I'll just make a comment on my support for this project, just because I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, having the federal funding available to do a project like this. For us to come up with the money to do something that would be impossible. If there wasn't ARPA dollars, I mean, we'd have to actually bond for it, and given all the needs of the city, it would be very difficult to accommodate this need as well. So I'm in full support of doing this, and I think it'll serve our our city well. The situation in the Windermere, I think, has been very beneficial during the time, is during COVID, right? And during COVID, hotels didn't have any business. So to come in there and rent the hotel rooms, but as we know now, hotel rooms the prices are escalated well above before COVID, and just my regular experience. So long-term, it's not a reliable way, not only on the rate, but we do know in hotels that they change hands all the time. It's just part of an investment portfolio. So it doesn't provide the long-term stability that we're looking for, and having the investment that we're owning this and controlling our future and taking opportunity of funds that we normally don't have available to our city, I think is a smart use of the dollars to serve our population. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie?
Yeah, and I want to echo some of those same sentiments. When I'm out talking to students and different groups and nonprofits, faith-based organizations, everyone's really excited about this and glad that we're doing it. They see the need. I don't think even in my end of my 4th year of being on council, I'm ever going to get used to the fact that everything goes so slowly. It's very frustrating to me. I'm never going to get used to it, because I'm like, we approved this after a really long process. A year ago, we approved it, and now anyway, I mean, and I know why it all takes so long, but it's still frustrating to me, because when the need is already right here, and then we still have to wait another year and a half before we're gonna be able to use it, is really hard. Since this is my district, and I drive around this area a lot, it just has like a chain link fence up right now, and it doesn't look great. And so I've talked to them to just as soon as we can to start like the wall, the lighting, the landscaping. I mean, I know a lot of the work that's being done is on the buildings, so just as soon as we can to make it look a little bit better so that it's not a blight on the community. And I think we had talked about too, just making sure we have some extra paroles to make sure that there's patrols, what I meant to say, to make sure that there's nothing shady going on our empty property that we promised the neighborhood wasn't going to hurt the neighborhood. So anyways, I just want to make sure, I just want to make those comments to make sure that's happening.
Pillsbury and Candace, when we get the contractor involved, we can ask them to put up their construction fence with the wrap on it, so that maybe will help clean it up too.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a great property before,
No.
so I don't think that it's worse with a chain
No,
link
you don't
fence on
have
it.
the fire and police department visiting there as
Exactly.
often as it used to.
Right, so I'm not saying that, but I feel really strongly, like the mayor said, I think this is actually going to uplift this area very contrary to what a lot of the neighbors were upset about. I think this will actually totally uplift this neighborhood. So in the process of building this, I just want to make sure we're not
Yeah,
doing anything.
that's a good
with it.
point. We can do that. We can work with a contractor.
And Mayor and Councilmember Spilsbury, I think it'll be really exciting when the contractor is on site, right? Because now, right now, it's sitting with the fences and there's just no activity. And that's difficult because like, well, when is it ever going to start, as you say? And I think once we get the contractor on site and then they'll put up their fencing, but it'll be the contractor fencing, and there'll be people on site and there'll be movement and there'll be activity. And that really changes just even the feeling of it.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Council? All right, thank you very much, ladies. Next item on our agenda is current events and conferences attended. Council, I know you've been busy. Who would like to share? I'll share. Mr. Freeman.
Thank you. I was able to speak at the Mesa Historical Museum Cemetery Tour, and Councilmember Duff and Giles, you've done that as well. It's a fun time. I got to visit about a constable that was long lost in Arizona and found at the Mesa Cemetery. They didn't know that he existed there. Yesterday, I took a tour at the Paul Revere Academy at EVET, and I was really impressed by the outreach they do for foster students in the community, and that was very impressive in how they're doing that. And the academy is open to everyone, but also focusing on foster students and attrition there and help them get their education and technical education. It was very informative. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Julie.
Councilmember Duff and I are going to go do that tour on Monday, so that'll be cool to go see that. Thursday, I had the opportunity to be a judge for the Mesa Chambers Shark Tank type event called Mesa Pitch. 5 different small businesses came and made their pitch to the judges and were awarded prizes, and a company that does walnut butter won, and it was delicious. So anyways, we were all hoping it actually tasted good since they won their presentation. But anyways, that was cool, and a lot of people supporting small business efforts in the city. On, let's see, Monday, the new MCC president, Richard Daniel, had his first Community Advisory Council meeting. So that was really great to be there and to support him in this new role and continue to work on these great partnerships that we have with MCC. I got to talk to another group of Heartwood Montessori students about the city and the role that we play in our community. And it's just so fun to talk to those teenagers and hear their ideas and questions and see how things work. I think they could all tell me who the president of the United States was, but much harder to say who the governor and who the mayor is. And so helping them understand that local government affects them more than what everyone pays attention to. I said, tell your parents. It's so interesting. And then Wednesday was the Mesa Public Schools Foundation Business Breakfast, where they honored a community member that has had a huge impact on education. Drum roll, the mayor. So that was really sweet to hear them list a really, really long list of all the things that the mayor has done over the last 10 years to support education in our community and workforce development. So Councilmember Freeman and Goforth were also there for that. And then yesterday, Councilmember Goforth and I went and did the Halloween boo over at the Red Mountain Library. There was a steady stream of kids for an hour straight. I couldn't believe how many kids there were. I only made 2 kids cry with my witch cackle. So
She's not kidding.
Don't ask.
I want to do it so
Don't
bad
ask.
right now, but we're in a professional setting. It's Halloween, happy Halloween, but if you want to hear it, I'll do it after.
You really should do it.
I know, it's good. It's one of my best talents. I wanted to thank the library staff. I know there's multiple ones happening today as well at Dobson and the main library. So those are really fun events for our community.
Mel,
Yeah,
the Mesa Express Library.
Oh, they're doing one at the Express Library
Yeah,
too.
this
morning,
Okay.
right?
Mesa Express Library in Superstition Springs is doing
Yeah.
one.
Oh, great.
10 o'clock, I
I think
believe.
it's 10 o'clock, yeah.
I think
Oh,
10
that's
o'clock.
so fun. Great.
And I think I'm doing one at the main library at 10 o'clock if anybody wants to be there.
Should go do my witch cackle.
You should. Council, who else would like to share? Welcome back, Councilmember Duff.
Yeah, I've been gone a couple of weeks. I was in England, actually, and there was some city business at hand I was glad to participate in. I attended in Derby, England, at the National Memorial Arboretum. There was a plaque dedication in the Arboretum, among some other trees, for the British Flying Training School number 4 that trained at Falcon Field during World War II. And it was in a grove of other, I think there was 5 locations across the United States that had training of the British pilots during World War II in various states. I think there's 5, and there was a small orchard of birch trees of British and American ones representing those different flight training schools. So we did the dedication. There is a following of the Falcon Field Day, the British Flight Training School number 4 in England, and it was kind of a reunion as well, and we got together with the descendants, and there are a few, one living pilot attended, and there are, I think, a couple of others, but the descendants carrying on the history and making more means to record the history of the shared history between America and Britain at that time. Afterwards, we did visit a few cities for a potential sister city relationship. We've been working on that over the past year and a half of cultivating and looking at what maybe we have an outstanding invitation. We'll see if that comes through, but is a great insight into our shared histories of the United States Air Force and the Royal Air Force and the tie-overs in the various cities. So I've been up to that, and I did take 1 week of vacation while I was over there in London. Thank you.
Before we, thank you for your efforts on, I know you have family history tied to Falcon Field, and so I know this is meaningful for you on various levels, but it's probably a good time to remind people that every year on the Sunday attached to Veterans Day, there's a wonderful service at our city cemetery honoring those 21 young men from England that lost their lives in Mesa, Arizona during World War II, during flight training as they were RAF officers. So this is really a remarkable event, and I encourage everyone, if you haven't had the opportunity, or well, even if you had, so that'll be 2 Sundays from now on the 10th at 10 a.m. At the Mesa Cemetery. It includes a flyover of historic planes, and it's just a very patriotic, very meaningful ceremony, and I'm looking forward to participating again this year on the Sunday, the 10th of November. Alicia.
I just wanted to say thank you, Jen, for representing the city of Mesa, the council.
I'm glad to go.
Yeah. And then I wanted to mention one other event that I attended a book launch on Tuesday. And I think, Mayor, you were.
Sorry, I missed that.
No problem.
Yeah.
But we have a local business owner who, he and his team is Steve Collins, who owns Cup of Joey, along with his wife, Rhonda, and his daughter, Amy Collins, wrote a children's book. He is originally from Australia, so it's about a kangaroo who comes to Arizona. And they launched it at Stevenson Elementary because Stevenson is in the book, and part of the proceeds are being donated to Stevenson Elementary. So I just wanted to mention that he is not only just a small business owner who employs several people here in Mesa, but is a great community member and partner. And so I thank him, and I also wanted to thank John Pompier was there as well, and Amazon sponsored and donated 250 books to Stevenson, so it was a great event. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to share, Council? I'll just note that last week, annually, the City of Mesa Police Department does a fundraiser, a Fuel of Dreams, where they pump gas and wash windshields, and so I was happy to participate in that last week. Also, the annual Jim Bob Burger pop-up was here. I'm sure, yeah, Councilmember Duff is very disappointed she missed it, but where Worth takeaway, becomes Bob's Burger, it was Jim Bob's Burger. That's true. And again, it was a wonderful event, and they make really good burgers. You keep thinking that Worth needs to start a burger concept somewhere, because they're very good. Sunday, in keeping with, we're all familiar with this being Domestic Violence Awareness Month. There was an event at the Nile Theater, Voices of Empowerment. I was happy to be a part of that. And thanks again to, Julie mentioned the Mesa Public Schools Foundation event this week. That's an important organization. This is where we connect with the business community to help fund a lot of the workforce development things that are occurring with Mesa Public Schools. So appreciated the support of the business community for that. And then last night, I was pleased to moderate a panel over at the Cronkite School in downtown Phoenix of a screening of a very good movie called War Game that talks about political extremism resulting in violence, and studies the January 6th events of 4 years ago. But very, very timely, and appreciate the opportunity to be a part of that. Mr. Brady, what does our schedule of future meetings look like?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder, council, we will have our council meeting on Monday, November 4th. We'll have a study session at 5:15, and will be followed by our council meeting. We also want to remind the council that on Monday, Andrea, we will have an event for a renaming ceremony. So once you give them the details, because this is coming up Monday morning at 7:30.
Thank you, City Manager Brady. Mayor, Council, Andrea Alico, we on Monday morning will be out at the site, the Mesa Grande Cultural Park site at 7:30 a.m. for a renaming ceremony. The renaming will be given a native name to its cultural heritage, Shudag Muval Vaki. This ceremony will be held private out of the request and to be respectful to the 4 Southern tribal partners that will be in attendance with us at this ceremony. But it will be live broadcasted through social media for the public, as well as the recording will be also made available. In addition, the site will be open to the public for its season beginning November 9th. Those hours will be 10 a.m. through 4 p.m. on Saturdays and from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. on Sundays.
Thank you, Andrea. Mayor and Council, I know you're anxious to move into the new building. So right now, we have, it should be on your schedule that Thursday, November 21st will be the last study session meeting in this building. And then that evening, November 21st, beginning at 5 p.m. will be the formal dedication ribbon cutting of the new City Hall. So hopefully you can all attend that. It'll be from 5 to 7:30. It's an invitation only event. And then on that Saturday, following that Thursday, Saturday, November 23rd, we'll have a community open house for City Hall. And that'll go from 10 to noon. So we're getting the word out to the community about inviting them to come and enjoy their new City Hall. So we're excited about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. That is a very exciting and historic day for our city. Every time I drive by that building now, I came down Main Street just a couple of days ago, and I was just so impressed at what a contribution that's going to be to our downtown for the city to have an open front door and a beautiful building that's going to be very inviting, and again, it'll be a point of pride for generations to come. So,
thank you, Mayor.
Yeah.
Real quick, just to give council a heads up. Today, I will be sending out the city manager's update. Included in the update for this afternoon or today will include the updated homeowner survey that often we use as we look at the utility rates and property tax and everything related to homeowners. So that survey will be made available to you, as well as a presentation we're giving it to you ahead of time on our briefing with you on utility rates. There's been a lot of questions that have come up about the transfer, about the impact that the utility rates will have on different customers. So all that will be included. It'll be an attachment or included as a link in the update. We're trying to make the homeowner survey a link that you can then share with individuals who may have questions about how does Mesa rank with other communities as far as the total impact on homeowners. So we'll have that out to you today.
great. Look forward to seeing that. Ms. Duff.
I'm just trying to get caught up a little bit, but I believe we have game night on Saturday, is that correct?
This Saturday.
This Saturday, okay, so council members will be out there visiting neighborhoods and, so, of course.
Yeah.
So that'll be a fun event this weekend on Saturday, just to visit the neighborhood block parties that are going on across the city.
Look forward to it. Be a lot of hot dogs eaten this Saturday. All right, thank you, council. If there's nothing else, that concludes our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? Thank you, Mr. Summers. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. We are adjourned.